Imagine you are walking through the heavy silence that settles over St. Petersburg when the Neva River has turned to iron. The air is sharp and cold, carrying the scent of wood smoke and frozen earth from the streets below. Your breath hangs before you in a thin, white cloud that vanishes into the gloom. You stand at the edge of the frozen river where the city seems to hold its breath in the deep winter night. The snow reflects the pale moonlight, turning the ground into a sheet of pale, shimmering glass that stretches toward the massive walls of the palace. Inside, the corridors are long and dark, lit only by the soft, wavering glow of candelabra carried by silent attendants. Wax drips slowly onto brass holders, pooling in intricate patterns that tell the story of many long nights. You hear the faint crunch of boots on polished marble, a sound that echoes softly before being swallowed by the thick tapestries that line the walls. The temperature drops as you move deeper into the heart of the building, where the heat of the grate fires cannot quite reach the stone. Shadows stretch long across the floor, dancing in the flickering light of the hearth that burns in the distance. A large tapestry depicting a mythological scene hangs on the far wall, its threads woven in deep blues and golds that seem to shimmer in the dim light. The fabric feels cool and smooth to the touch, bearing the weight of centuries of history within its fibers. A heavy velvet curtain lies folded on a nearby chaise lounge, smelling faintly of beeswax and old paper. Outside the tall, frosted windows, the snow falls gently on the frozen Neva River, muffling the world beyond. The silence is profound and complete, wrapping the space in a blanket of quiet peace that seems to stop time itself. No footsteps echo on the floorboards, and no voices break the stillness of the night. The air feels still and heavy, holding the memories of all who have walked these halls before. In the throne room, the gilded columns catch the light from 100 candles, casting a golden haze over the empty chairs. The throne sits high on a dais, a place of power that is currently empty and still. You can see the dust motes dancing in the light, moving slowly in the stagnant air. A porcelain vase sits on a pedestal, its surface painted with delicate flowers that seem to bloom in the firelight. The craftsmanship is exquisite, showing the skill of the artisans who worked for the court with such devotion. Everything in the room seems to breathe slowly, as if resting after a long day of activity. The sense of history is palpable, yet it brings no weight to the spirit. It is a place of rest where the past and present merge in a gentle harmony. In the private chambers, the heavy drapes block out the moonlight, leaving only the soft glow of the candle to illuminate the space. The room feels safe and secure, a heaven where the day's burdens are laid aside. A figure sits near the window, a silent presence in the background, watching the snow fall with a quiet gaze. She is a part of the room, a background presence in the stillness of the deep winter night. The firelight casts a gentle rhythm on the walls, a slow and steady pulse that matches the heartbeat of the house. The silence is a companion to the room, wrapping around it like a warm and soft blanket. The night is hers to command, yet she chooses to let it pass in gentle and quiet repose. The stillness of the winter palace at midnight is a profound and enduring presence that fills the air. The cold outside contrasts with the warmth of the fire, creating a boundary between the harsh world and the safe interior. You feel the temperature drop as you move toward the window, seeing your breath fog the glass. The reflection in the window shows the room behind you, a ghostly image of gold and shadow. The snow continues to fall in thick, silent flakes that muffle the sounds of the world beyond. The young girl who once walked these halls would one day rule over millions of people across a vast empire. The lessons of winter remained etched in her soul, preparing her for the storms that would eventually come. The years passed slowly and steadily in the quiet German town where she had first opened her eyes to the world. The snow in Stettin eventually melted to reveal the green grass of spring, but the lessons of winter remained. She grew taller and stronger while her mind sharpened with every new book she read and every new language she mastered. The text lists her lifespan as a span of nearly 70 years that included 40 years of active governance. Her final days were marked by the same discipline and order that characterized her entire existence. The transition from life to death was handled with the same quiet dignity that she applied to all her affairs. The empire she left behind continued to grow and evolve under the leadership of her son. The Winter Palace remained the center of Russian power, a symbol of the grandeur she had cultivated. The silence of the palace at night echoed the stillness of her final sleep. The art she loved continued to be admired and studied by generations of scholars and art lovers. The legacy of her rule remains embedded in the architecture and institutions she built throughout her lifetime. The Winter Palace itself stands as a testament to her vision and her enduring power over the Russian state. Today, the palace forms an integral part of the Hermitage Art Museum, where millions of visitors walk the same floors. The rooms that witnessed her final moments now display the art she collected with such passion and discernment. Hintrocta, verbatim, if this hour serves you. The bell brings the next, and whisper a single name below. Anyone whose night we should walk into. The snow falls softly against the tall windows of the Winter Palace, muffling the world outside into a deep and heavy silence. You stand in the vast corridor where the stone floor reflects the flickering light of 100 candelabras. The air here is cool and still, carrying the faint scent of beeswax and polished wood that has soaked into the walls over many decades. Shadows stretch long and thin across the gilded moldings, moving slowly as the flames dance within their glass holders. A distant bell tolls somewhere in the city, its sound traveling through the frozen air before it reaches these high halls. The echo fades quickly, swallowed by the thick tapestries that line the corridor in deep blues and golds. You can hear the soft crackle of a fire burning in a distant hearth, a sound that seems to pulse with the rhythm of the building itself. The windows are frosted over, creating a veil of white that blurs the view of the frozen Neva River below. Inside, the light is warm and golden, pooling in the corners of the room and highlighting the intricate patterns of the marble floors. Every surface seems to breathe slowly, holding the weight of centuries of history without any sense of burden. The silence is not empty but full, filled with the quiet presence of all who have walked these halls before. You walk slowly, your footsteps making a soft sound on the stone that does not disturb the peace. The air feels heavy and still, as if time has paused to let the palace rest. In the throne room, the great chairs sit empty under the glow of the candelabras, their velvet cushions untouched by the night. The walls are covered in paintings that seem to watch the room with silent eyes, their colors deep and rich in the dim light. A large tapestry hangs on the far wall, depicting a mythological scene that unfolds in threads of blue and gold. The fabric is cool to the touch, smooth and heavy, bearing the history of many long nights spent in quiet contemplation. You can smell the old paper and the wax, a scent that belongs only to this place and this time. Outside, the snow continues to fall, covering the frozen river in a thick white blanket that muffles the world. The stars above shine with a cold and distant clarity, visible through the gaps in the clouds. Inside, the warmth of the fire crackles quietly, providing a gentle heat that contrasts with the cold air near the windows. The palace seems to settle into a deep sleep, its vast halls empty and still. The light from the candelabras flickers gently, casting long shadows that dance slowly across the floor. A porcelain vase sits on a pedestal, its surface painted with delicate flowers that seem to bloom in the dim light. The craftsmanship is exquisite, showing the skill of the artisans who worked for the court with such care. Everything in the room moves slowly, as if the building itself is resting after a long day of activity. The sense of history is palpable, yet it brings no weight to the spirit, only a gentle harmony of past and present. You move through the corridors, feeling the cool air on your skin and hearing the soft sounds of the house settling. The heavy drapes block out the moonlight, leaving only the soft glow of the candles to illuminate the space. In one of the private chambers, a figure sits quietly in a high, backed chair. her hands folded calmly in her lap. She does not speak, and no one speaks to her. For the night is hers to command in silence. The world outside seems to hold its breath. In the stillness of the deep winter night, waiting for the dawn. Time moves slowly in this quiet sanctuary, far removed from the demands of the court and the state. The peace of the room offers a rare moment of respite for a mind that has worked tirelessly for many years. She closes her eyes for a moment, listening to the soft breathing of the house as it settles for the night. The heavy drapes block out the moonlight, leaving only the soft glow of the candle to illuminate the space. The room feels safe and secure, a haven where she can be alone with her thoughts and her writing. The silence is a companion to her, wrapping around her like a warm and soft blanket. She breathes in deeply, feeling the calm settle into her bones as the night deepens around her. The firelight casts a gentle rhythm on the walls, a slow and steady pulse that matches her own heartbeat. The room is a place of rest and reflection, where the burdens of the day can be laid aside. The quiet atmosphere allows her mind to drift into a state of peaceful contemplation and deep relaxation. The night is hers to command, yet she chooses to let it pass in gentle and quiet repose. The stillness of the winter palace at midnight is a profound and enduring presence that fills the air. The snow falls softly against the glass, a constant reminder of the cold world outside. The fire crackles in the hearth, a warm and steady sound that fills the room with comfort. The candelabras burn low, their flames flickering in the still air. The shadows stretch and retreat, moving with the slow rhythm of the night. You stand in the doorway, watching the scene unfold in the dim light. The palace is a vast and silent world, filled with the echoes of the past. The air is cool and still, carrying the scent of wax and old paper. The snow falls outside, covering the frozen river in a thick white blanket. The stars shine above, cold and distant in the winter sky. Inside, the warmth of the fire provides a gentle heat that fills the room. The heavy drapes block out the light, leaving only the soft glow of the candles. The figure in the chair rests quietly, her hands folded in her lap. The silence is absolute, broken only by the soft sound of the fire. The night is deep and still, a time for rest and reflection. The palace sleeps, its halls empty and quiet. The snow falls softly, muffling the world outside. The fire crackles gently, a warm and steady sound. The candelabras burn low, their flames flickering in the still air. The shadows stretch and retreat, moving with the slow rhythm of the night. The air is cool and still, carrying the scent of wax and old paper. The snow falls outside, covering the frozen river in a thick white blanket. The stars shine above, cold and distant in the winter sky. Inside, the warmth of the fire provides a gentle heat that fills the room. The heavy drapes block out the light, leaving only the soft glow of the candles. The figure in the chair rests quietly, her hands folded in her lap. The silence is absolute, broken only by the soft sound of the fire. The night is deep and still, a time for rest and reflection. The palace sleeps, its halls empty and quiet. The snow falls softly, muffling the world outside. The fire crackles gently, a warm and steady sound. The candelabras burn low, their flames flickering in the still air. The shadows stretch and retreat, moving with the slow rhythm of the night. The air is cool and still, carrying the scent of wax and old paper. The snow falls outside, covering the frozen river in a thick white blanket. The stars shine above, cold and distant in the winter sky. Inside, the warmth of the fire provides a gentle heat that fills the room. The heavy drapes block out the light, leaving only the soft glow of the candles. The figure in the chair rests quietly, her hands folded in her lap. The silence is absolute, broken only by the soft sound of the fire. The night is deep and still, a time for rest and reflection. The palace sleeps, its halls empty and quiet. The snow falls softly, muffling the world outside. The fire crackles gently, a warm and steady sound. The candelabras burn low, their flames flickering in the still air. The shadows stretch and retreat, moving with the slow rhythm of the night. The air is cool and still, carrying the scent of wax and old paper. The snow falls outside, covering the frozen river in a thick white blanket. The stars shine above, cold and distant in the winter sky. Inside, the warmth of the fire provides a gentle heat that fills the room. The heavy drapes block out the light, leaving only the soft glow of the candles. The figure in the chair rests quietly, her hands folded in her lap. The silence is absolute, broken only by the soft sound of the stone walls of the corridor hold the cold of the Neva deep within their gray heart, a chill that no fire can fully erase. Thick carpets of crimson wool stretch from one end of the hall to the other, swallowing the sound of every footstep that moves across them. Servants glide through the shadows, with trays of silver and porcelain, their movements silent and practiced in the dim light. Portraits of ancestors line the walls, their painted eyes fixed on the floor with a calm and steady gaze that seems to watch over the night. The silence is profound, broken only by the occasional crackle of wood burning in a massive marble hearth that stands against the far wall. A large clock on the mantel ticks with a slow and rhythmic beat that marks the passing of time in this great house. The light from 100 candles casts long and dancing shadows that move gently across the polished surfaces of mahogany and gilt. The room feels warm and safe despite the bitter wind that blows outside against the heavy stone blocks. The scent of old paper from the library shelves adds a dry and comforting aroma to the air. mixing with the smell of beeswax and cold stone. Everything in this space seems to breathe with a quiet life that is separate from the world outside the frozen river. The stillness of the night allows the mind to rest and drift into a state of peaceful contemplation, away from the noise of the court. You can see the intricate patterns on the ceiling in the soft glow, inviting the eye to wander slowly across the painted clouds and gold leaf. The heavy velvet curtains sway slightly as a draft moves through the room and stirs the air with a gentle whisper. This quiet space provides a sanctuary for the soul and offers a place of deep and restful sleep for those who walk these halls. The air near the great windows tastes of frost and river mist, a sharp tang that cuts through the warmth of the interior. Outside, the Neva is a solid sheet of ice under the pale moonlight, its surface rough and uneven with the wind that scars it all day. The reflection of the palace lights shimmers on the frozen water, a broken mirror of gold and white that drifts with the slow current of the river below. Inside, the polished wood floors gleam in the candlelight, reflecting the faces of the few who move through the corridors at this hour. A servant pauses to adjust a candelabra, the wax dripping slowly onto the silver tray beneath it. The flame flickers and steadies, casting a new pattern of light on the wall where a tapestry hangs. The texture of the wool is rough to the touch, woven with threads of blue and silver that tell stories of battles and triumphs long past. The smell of wood smoke drifts from the hearths in the distant rooms, carrying with it the scent of burning birch and pine. It is a smell that belongs to the winter, to the long nights when the sun sets early and the cold settles into the bones of the city. The streets outside are empty, the cobblestones hidden beneath a layer of fresh snow that muffles all sound. Only the occasional creak of a carriage wheel or the distant bark of a dog breaks the silence of the frozen streets. The palace stands as a fortress against the night, its windows glowing with a steady light that guides the way for those who must travel in the dark. In a small alcove near the throne room, a single figure sits on a wooden stool, a basket of mending at their side. The person is an unnamed attendant, their hands moving with a steady rhythm as they stitch a tear in a heavy silk gown. The needle pierces the fabric with a soft sound, pulling the thread through the weave with practiced ease. The light from a nearby candle illuminates the work, casting a small circle of warmth on the dark wood of the floor. The gown is a deep blue, embroidered with silver threads that catch the light with every movement of the hand. The attendant works in silence, their focus complete as they repair the damage from a long day of court life. The sound of the needle is the only noise in this corner of the palace, a quiet rhythm that matches the ticking of the clock in the distance. The figure pauses for a moment to look up, their eyes scanning the long corridor that stretches out into the shadows. The walls are lined with mirrors that reflect the candlelight, creating an illusion of endless space and depth. The attendant returns to the work, their hands moving with a grace that belies the fatigue of the night. The fabric feels cool and smooth under their fingers, a contrast to the warmth of the candle flame. This small act of mending is a quiet defiance against the wear and tear of time, a moment of care in a world of grandeur. The work continues stitch by stitch as the night deepens around the palace and the city sleeps in the snow. The corridors seem to stretch on forever, a labyrinth of gold and shadow that leads to rooms unknown. You can hear the soft murmur of conversation from behind a closed door, a low hum that fades into silence as the voice speaks. The air is still and heavy, filled with the scent of dried flowers and old wood that has been seasoned by decades of use. The light from the candles grows dimmer as the wax burns down, casting longer shadows that dance on the walls. The silence is a companion to the night, wrapping around the palace like a warm and soft blanket. The heavy drapes block out the moonlight, leaving only the soft glow of the candle to illuminate the space. The room feels safe and secure, a haven where the burdens of the day can be laid aside. The quiet atmosphere allows the mind to drift into a state of peaceful contemplation and deep relaxation. The night is hers to command, yet she chooses to let it pass in gentle and quiet repose. The stillness of the winter palace at midnight is a profound and enduring presence that fills the air with a sense of calm. The great halls are empty now, the guests gone, and the servants resting in their quarters. The firelight casts a gentle rhythm on the walls, a slow and steady pulse that matches the heartbeat of the building itself. The palace breathes in the silence, a great beast sleeping in the heart of the frozen city. The snow continues to fall outside, covering the world in a soft, white blanket that muffles all sound. The river is silent, the ice thick and unbroken under the weight of the winter night. The palace stands as a monument to the past, its walls holding the memories of 1,000 nights like this one. The light from the windows fades slowly as the candles burn out, one by one, leaving the hall in darkness. The silence deepens, a heavy and comforting weight that settles over the stone and wood. The night is long and the sleep is deep, a rest that comes after the long day of state and ceremony. The palace sleeps, and the city sleeps with it, wrapped in the quiet of the frozen Neva. The world outside seems to hold its breath. In the stillness of the deep winter night, waiting for the morning light to break the spell, the peace of the room offers a rare moment of respite, a place where the mind can rest and the body can recover. The silence is a companion to the night, a quiet friend that guides the way to sleep. The fire dies down to embers, their glow fading slowly into the darkness of the room. The clock on the mantel continues to tick, a steady beat that marks the passage of time in the quiet house. The night is deep and the sleep is sweet, a dreamless rest that comes with the cold and the silence. The palace sleeps on, a silent guardian of the frozen river and the city beyond. The snow falls softly, covering the world in a blanket of white that hides the tracks of the day. The light fades from the windows, leaving the hall in a darkness that is soft and deep. The silence is absolute, a perfect stillness that fills the air and settles into the bones. The night is over, and the morning waits just beyond the edge of the dark. The palace rests, and the world rests with it, in the quiet of the frozen winter night. The heavy oak doors stand, closed against the deep winter night, sealing the corridor in a silence that feels thick enough to touch. Inside the private study, the air holds the scent of old paper, dried lavender, and the faint, sharp smoke of a dying fire. You can hear the soft crackle of embers settling in the massive marble hearth, a sound that marks the slow passage of hours, while the world outside remains frozen in white stillness. Candles flicker on the polished mahogany desk, their light casting long, dancing shadows that stretch across the intricate patterns of the rug. These shadows move with a gentle rhythm, mimicking the slow pulse of the house itself as it rests between the demands of the day and the quiet of the night. The heavy velvet drapes are drawn tight to keep out the bitter cold, leaving only the soft glow of the flame to illuminate the space where ink and parchment wait. You feel the warmth radiating from the stone walls, a dry heat that contrasts with the frozen breath of the Neva visible through the frosted glass of the small window. Outside, the snow lies deep and undisturbed, a white blanket that muffles the distant sound of wind against the stone. Inside, the air is still, holding the dry aroma of leather bindings and the faint, sweet smell of beeswax from the candelabra. A large clock on the mantel ticks with a steady, rhythmic beat, counting the seconds as they slip away into the darkness of the sane Petersburg winter. The hands move slowly, marking a time that feels separate from the rushing hours of the court, a time where only the fire and the silence exist. You notice the way the light catches the gold leaf on the picture frames, turning them into pools of warm reflection against the dark wood of the walls. Portraits of ancestors gaze down with calm, steady expressions, their painted eyes watching over the room with a quiet, unblinking presence. The floor is covered with thick carpets that muffle any sound of movement, ensuring that the peace of this sanctuary remains unbroken by the footsteps of servants or the rustle of silk. In the corner, a small table holds a bowl of dried fruit and a pitcher of water, left there for the night. untouched and waiting. The firelight shifts as a log collapses in the hearth, sending a brief shower of sparks up the chimney before settling back into a low, steady glow. This light reveals the texture of the paper on the desk, the rough grain of the wood, and the faint lines of ink that have dried into the fibers. You can imagine the quiet scratch of a quill pen moving across the page. Though no sound is heard now, only the memory of such work lingering in the air. The room feels like a vessel, held in a state of suspended animation, waiting for the morning light to break the spell of the midnight hour. Through the half-open door of the adjoining chamber, a figure moves briefly in the periphery of your vision, a shadow passing through the gloom, before disappearing into the deeper darkness. The movement is slight, a mere shift of fabric and form that suggests a presence without demanding attention or focus. You do not follow this figure, but simply acknowledge their passage as another element of the quiet house settling into the night. The door remains open just enough to let a sliver of light spill into the study, creating a bridge between the two spaces that is soon broken as the figure moves away. The silence returns, deeper now, as if the room has exhaled a breath it was holding. The candles burn lower, their flames shrinking and wavering in the slight draft that moves through the room, stirring the air gently. You feel the coolness of the stone floor beneath your feet, a reminder of the vast, frozen world beyond these walls. The Neva River flows slowly under the ice, its sound lost beneath the weight of the snow and the thick stone of the palace foundations. Time seems to stretch and slow, each moment stretching out like the long shadows on the wall. The firelight dances across the ceiling, illuminating the intricate plasterwork with a soft, golden hue that fades and returns with the rhythm of the flame. This quiet space offers a refuge from the cold wind that blows against the outer walls, a place where the mind can rest and drift into a state of peaceful contemplation. The heavy curtains sway slightly as a draft moves through the room, stirring the air with a soft, whispering sound that blends with the ticking of the clock. Everything in the room seems to breathe with a quiet life, separate from the world outside where the wind howls and the snow falls in thick, silent flakes. The stillness of the night allows the mind to drift, unburdened by the demands of the state or the concerns of the court. The intricate patterns on the ceiling invite the eye to wander slowly, tracing the lines and curves until they dissolve into the darkness of the corners. The scent of old paper and dried lavender fills the air, a comforting aroma that has remained unchanged for decades. This quiet sanctuary holds the memories of countless nights spent in reflection, a place where the burdens of the day are laid aside and the soul finds rest. The light from the candles continues to cast long, dancing shadows that move gently across the polished wooden furniture, creating a play of light and dark that never repeats itself. You feel the warmth of the fire on your skin, a gentle heat that seeps into the bones and calms the spirit. The room is a haven of safety, a place where the world outside cannot reach, where the only sounds are the crackle of the fire and the ticking of the clock. The night deepens and the shadows grow longer, stretching across the floor until they merge with the darkness of the corners. The firelight flickers one last time, casting a final soft glow across the room before settling into a low, steady burn. The silence wraps around the room like a warm blanket, holding the space in a state of perfect, unbroken peace. The clock ticks on, marking the slow, steady passage of time as the night continues its long, quiet journey toward the dawn. The fire dims, the shadows lengthen, and the room settles into a deep, restful sleep. The frozen Neva holds the city in a grip of silent ice, a vast white plain stretching beneath the dark sky. Inside the winter palace, the air is still and heavy with the scent of beeswax and old stone. You walk through the long corridors, where shadows stretch from the candelabra, dancing against the gilded walls. The floorboards do not creak under your feet, for they are worn smooth by centuries of careful steps. Snow reflects a pale, ghostly light through the frosted windows, turning the darkness outside into a soft, blue haze. This is the hour when the world seems to pause, suspended between the deep sleep of the night and the coming dawn. The fire in the hearth burns low, sending up thin threads of smoke that drift toward the high ceiling. You can hear the occasional crackle of a log settling, a sound that echoes faintly in the vast space. The silence is not empty, but full of the quiet rhythms of a house at rest. It is a silence that has weight, pressing gently against the ears like a warm blanket. In the throne room, the great chairs stand in rows, their velvet cushions dark and deep in the half-light. You see the gold leaf on the columns catching the last flicker of candle flame, creating tiny points of warmth in the cool air. The cold from the river seeps through the thick stone walls, a subtle chill that raises the hair on your arms. Yet the room feels protected, a fortress against the biting wind that howls outside. The chandeliers hang like frozen stars, their crystals dull without the full brightness of day. You can imagine the rustle of silk and the murmur of voices from days gone by, now faded into memory. The air smells of dust and dried lavender, a scent that lingers in the corners of the room. Time moves slowly here, measured only by the slow burn of the wax candles and the shifting shadows. It is a place of grandeur, but in this hour, it feels small and intimate, wrapped in its own quiet history. Further down the hall, the private chambers are dimmer, lit only by a single lamp on a wooden table. The heavy drapes are drawn tight, blocking out the moon and the snow, leaving only the soft glow of the flame. You stand in the doorway and see a figure seated by the window, a silhouette against the faint light. The person does not move, watching the frost patterns on the glass as they slowly form and reform. The sound of the wind is muffled by the thick walls, reduced to a low, distant hum. Inside, the only sound is the soft scratch of a quill on paper, a rhythmic scratching that fills the room. The ink pot sits open, the black liquid still and reflective. You can smell the faint scent of iron, gall ink mixed with the warmth of the room. The figure pauses, dipping the quill again. The movement deliberate and slow. There is a sense of deep focus, a mind working through the quiet of the night without haste. The candle flame flickers, casting long, wavering shadows across the floor and the walls. The room feels safe, a haven where the thoughts can wander freely without the noise of the day. The heat from the fire spreads across the room, warming the stone floor beneath your feet. You feel the contrast between the warmth inside and the cold that presses against the windows. The glass is thick with frost, creating a textured landscape of ice crystals that catch the light. You can hear the faint tick of a clock in the corner, marking the seconds with a steady, hypnotic beat. The pendulum swings back and forth, a silent metronome for the night. Outside, the world is frozen in time, the river locked in ice, the trees standing like statues in the snow. The silence of the palace is absolute, broken only by the occasional shift of the house as it settles. You can feel the stillness in your bones, a deep calm that spreads from your head to your toes. The air is cool and clean, filled with the scent of wood smoke and the faint aroma of dried flowers. It is a moment of perfect peace, where the worries of the day seem to fade into the background. The figure by the window finally moves, stretching a hand toward the candle to steady the flame. The light flares for a moment, illuminating the room in a sudden burst of gold before settling back to its soft glow. The person turns a page, the sound of paper rustling like dry leaves. You see the ink drying on the page, the words forming a story that will be read by others in the light of day. The room is a sanctuary, a place where the mind can rest and the spirit can find its balance. The cold outside is forgotten, replaced by the warmth of the fire and the quiet comfort of the night. The shadows on the wall seem to dance slowly, moving in time with the flickering flame. It is a scene of stillness and reflection, a moment captured in time that feels eternal. The house sleeps around you, the servants and the courtiers lost in their own dreams. The world outside continues its slow turn, but here, in this room, time seems to stand still. The candle burns lower, the wax pooling around the base of the holder. The flame shrinks, casting a smaller circle of light on the table. The darkness creeps in from the corners, slowly reclaiming the room. The sound of the quill stops, the paper is closed, and the figure leans back in the chair. The silence returns, deeper now, heavier with the weight of the night. You feel the calm settle into your chest, a quiet acceptance of the moment. The fire crackles once more, then fades to a soft glow of embers. The room is dark, save for the faint light of the dying flame. The shadows stretch long and thin across the floor, merging with the darkness. The cold from the window seeps in, but it does not feel sharp, only cool and gentle. You take a deep breath, filling your lungs with the still air of the room. The night is deep, and the world is quiet. The embers glow red in the hearth, a final warmth before the morning comes. The silence wraps around you like a heavy cloak, soft and warm. The house is asleep, and so is the world. The night holds its breath, waiting for the dawn. The light fades completely, leaving only the darkness and the sound of your own breathing. The stillness is absolute, a perfect peace that settles deep within. The night continues, slow and steady, until the first light of morning breaks the horizon. The embers turn to gray ash, and the fire is gone. The room is dark, but it is not cold, for the memory of the warmth remains. The silence is a companion, a friend in the quiet hours of the night. You close your eyes, letting the darkness take you, feeling the calm wash over you like a gentle tide. The night is deep, and the world is at rest. The stillness settles into your bones, a quiet peace that will last until the morning. The fire is out, the candle is gone, and the room is dark. The silence is complete, a perfect stillness that holds the night in its embrace. The night is deep, and the world is quiet. The stillness settles in, a calm that will last until the dawn. The night is over, but the peace remains. The silence is a gift, a moment of perfect stillness in a world that never stops moving. The night is deep, and the world is at rest. The stillness is absolute, a perfect peace that settles deep within. The night continues, slow and steady, until the first light of morning breaks the horizon. The embers turn to gray ash, and the fire is gone. The room is dark, but it is not cold, for the memory of the warmth remains. The silence is a companion, a friend in the quiet hours of the night. You close your eyes, letting the darkness take you, feeling the calm wash over you like a gentle tide. The night is deep, and the world is quiet. The stillness settles into your bones, a quiet peace that will last until the morning. The fire is out, the candle is gone, and the room is dark. The silence is complete, a perfect stillness that holds the night in its embrace. The night is deep, and the world is at rest. The stillness is absolute, a perfect peace that settles deep within. The night continues, slow and steady, until the first light of morning breaks the horizon. The great stone walls of the winter palace hold their breath, as the clock strikes the hour when the city sleeps most deeply. Outside, the frozen Neva River lies like a sheet of hammered iron under a sky full of distant stars. The cold air presses against the thick glass of the frosted windows, creating a soft white rime that blurs the world beyond. Inside, the corridors are empty of all but the shadows cast by the few remaining candelabras. Wax drips slowly onto the silver stands, pooling in small, hardening pools that reflect the dim light. The air smells of old beeswax, polished oak, and the sharp, clean scent of winter snow drifting through the cracks in the masonry. Heavy velvet drapes hang motionless near the tall windows, dampening the faint sounds of the city outside. A single guard walks his slow path along the corridor, his boots making a muffled sound on the thick carpets that cover the stone floor. He pauses only to check the flame of a wall sconce before moving on into the deeper darkness. The building itself seems to settle with a low groan, the wood contracting in the freezing night air. This sound is barely a whisper, yet it echoes through the vast spaces of the throne room and the private chambers. The fire in the hearth has burned down to a bed of glowing embers, casting a rhythmic pulse of orange. Light against the pale blue walls. Dust motes dance in the beams of light that filter through the heavy curtains, suspended in the still air like tiny stars. In the distance, a bell tolls once from a church far across the river, its sound muffled by the snow and the distance. The note hangs in the air for a long moment before fading into the silence of the night. The silence is not empty but full of the quiet life of the palace. It is a companion to the sleeping city, wrapping around the stone and wood like a warm blanket. Time moves slowly here, far removed from the demands of the court and the state that filled the day. The peace of the room offers a rare moment of respite for the tired mind of the empire. In a small study near the private chambers, a single candle burns with a steady flame that does not flicker in the still air. The scent of beeswax and old paper fills the space with a warm and comforting aroma. Stacks of letters lie on a desk, each one waiting to be read or answered with care when the sun returns. A quill pen rests gently on a sheet of parchment, its tip dry from the stillness of the night. The inkwell sits open beside the paper, the dark liquid reflecting the soft glow of the flame. Outside, the snow falls silently upon the frozen river, creating a soft white blanket over the city of St. Petersburg. The stars above the palace shine with a cold and distant clarity in the winter sky, unmoving and bright. Inside, the warmth of the fire crackles quietly in the hearth, providing a gentle heat for the room. A figure sits in a high, backed chair, hands folded calmly in a lap as the world rests. The heavy drapes block out the moonlight, leaving only the soft glow of the candle to illuminate the space. The room feels safe and secure, a haven where the burdens of the day can be laid aside. The quiet atmosphere allows the mind to drift into a state of peaceful contemplation and deep relaxation. The night is hers to command, yet she chooses to let it pass in gentle and quiet repose. The stillness of the Winter Palace at midnight is a profound and enduring presence that fills the air. The walls seem to listen to the slow rhythm of the sleeping house. A painting by a master hangs in a dimly lit room, its colors deep and rich in the candlelight. The figure in the portrait seems to gaze out with a calm and knowing expression, watching the night unfold. The brushstrokes are visible upon close inspection, revealing the hand of the artist at work in the quiet. The frame is gilded and ornate, reflecting the light of the nearby candelabra in soft, golden flashes. Dust motes dance in the beams of light that filter through the heavy velvet curtains suspended in the air. The room feels timeless, as if the world outside has ceased to exist for a moment in this quiet space. The painting depicts a scene of quiet contemplation, mirroring the mood of the palace at this late hour. The silence is absolute, broken only by the occasional crackle of the fire in the hearth. The warmth of the fire radiates outward, warming the stone walls and the wooden floor slowly. The shadows lengthen and shift as the candles burn lower in their holders, stretching across the floorboards. The painting remains a constant presence, a silent witness to the passage of time and the changing light. The history of the palace is written in the layers of paint and the wear on the floorboards. Every object in the room tells a story of the people who have lived and worked there for generations. The legacy of the great empress endures in the collections that were so carefully assembled over many years. Her vision of a cultured and enlightened Russia is realized in the stones and the art of the palace. The night deepens and the stars shine brightly over the frozen river, unmoving and cold. The palace stands as a beacon of culture in the vast and dark landscape of the north. The works of art and science gathered within its walls continue to wait for the morning light. The cold air settles into the corners of the room, bringing a fresh chill that mixes with the warmth of the fire. The snow continues to fall outside, muffling the world in a soft white silence. The building breathes slowly, its stone lungs expanding and contracting with the temperature of the night. A distant wind sighs against the high windows, a low sound that fades quickly into the stillness. The silence returns, deeper and more complete than before, wrapping the palace in its quiet embrace. The candles burn lower, their flames shrinking as the wax melts away into the night. The embers in the hearth glow with a soft red light, pulsing gently in the dark. The shadows on the wall grow long and thin, stretching across the floor like fingers of the night. The room is a place of rest and reflection, where the world can be left behind for a while. The quiet atmosphere allows the mind to drift into a state of peaceful contemplation and deep relaxation. The night is hers to command, yet she chooses to let it pass in gentle and quiet repose. The stillness of the winter palace at midnight is a profound and enduring presence that fills the air. The walls seem to listen to the slow rhythm of the sleeping house. A painting by a master hangs in a dimly lit room, its colors deep and rich in the candlelight. The figure in the portrait seems to gaze out with a calm and knowing expression, watching the night unfold. The brushstrokes are visible upon close inspection, revealing the hand of the artist at work in the quiet. The frame is gilded and ornate, reflecting the light of the nearby candelabra in soft, golden flashes. Dust motes dance in the beams of light that filter through the heavy velvet curtains suspended in the air. The room feels timeless, as if the world outside has ceased to exist for a moment in this quiet space. The painting depicts a scene of quiet contemplation, mirroring the mood of the palace at this late hour. The silence is absolute, broken only by the occasional crackle of the fire in the hearth. The warmth of the fire radiates outward, warming the stone walls and the wooden floor slowly. The shadows lengthen and shift as the candles burn lower in their holders, stretching across the floorboards. The painting remains a constant presence, a silent witness to the passage of time and the changing light. The history of the palace is written in the layers of paint, and the heavy curtains in the corridors still hold the deep indigo of a long winter night, blocking any hint of the coming day. Candles burn low in their brass holders, their flames shrinking until they become mere pinpricks of amber light against the vast gilded walls. The air inside the palace is cool and still, carrying the faint scent of beeswax and dried lavender that has lingered since evening. Outside, the frozen Neva River lies silent, under a blanket of untouched snow, reflecting the stars with a cold and distant clarity. A single guard moves slowly along the marble floor, his boots making a soft, rhythmic sound that echoes in the empty space. He pauses to check a lock, his breath visible as a small cloud in the chill air before it dissipates. The tapestries hanging from the high ceilings seem to breathe with the slow pulse of the building itself, their threads woven with stories of battles and peace. Dust motes dance in the narrow beams of light that filter through the heavy drapes, suspended in the stillness like tiny stars trapped indoors. The silence is a physical weight, pressing gently against the ears, broken only by the occasional crackle of a dying log in a distant hearth. Time moves differently here, stretching out in long, slow intervals that seem to have no beginning and no end. The shadows of the furniture stretch across the floor, elongated and dark, waiting for the sun to shift them back to their proper shapes. In the throne room, the great chandelier hangs motionless, its crystals catching the last of the candlelight and scattering it in faint, dancing patterns on the polished wood. The throne itself sits empty, a silent monument to power that has been set aside for the quiet of the night. The cold seeps in through the thick stone walls, a reminder of the winter that holds the city in its grip. A small bird, lost or perhaps seeking shelter, taps softly against a frosted window pane, its tiny beak making a faint clicking sound. The sound is sharp and clear in the stillness, a small life asserting itself against the vast silence of the palace. Inside the private chambers, the fire has burned down to a bed of glowing embers, casting a soft, red light that washes over the blue walls. A figure sits in a high, backed chair near the desk, surrounded by stacks of letters and papers that wait to be read. The quill rests on a sheet of parchment, the ink still wet from a final thought written before the long rest. The room smells of old paper and the faint, sweet aroma of the tea that has long since gone cold. The heavy velvet curtains remain drawn, keeping the darkness safe within the room. The figure leans forward slightly, hands folded in the lap, watching the embers glow and fade with a steady, calm gaze. There is no urgency here, only the quiet acceptance of the nights passing and the slow return of the day. The world outside is beginning to shift, though the change is subtle and almost imperceptible to those inside. The deep blue of the sky outside the frosted windows begins to lighten, turning a soft, pale gray that hints at the coming morning. The snow on the frozen river catches this new light, reflecting a faint, silvery sheen that spreads slowly across the ice. A baker in the distance begins to stir, the first sounds of the city rising from the deep sleep of the night. The sound of a wooden cart rolling over cobblestones echoes faintly through the walls, a rhythmic clatter that marks the start of the day. The temperature in the corridors shifts imperceptibly as the cold begins to recede, replaced by a faint, warm breath of air from the rising sun. The candles in the holders finally flicker out, leaving the room in a soft, natural light that grows stronger by the moment. The shadows retreat to the corners, their shapes becoming less distinct as the gray light fills the space. The bird taps against the window again, more insistent this time, calling to the morning that is finally arriving. The figure in the chair rises slowly, the movement fluid and unhurried, and walks to the window to pull back the heavy curtain. The light floods the room, washing away the last of the night's darkness and revealing the dust motes dancing in the air. The view outside shows the frozen Neva stretching out to the horizon, the snow glowing with a soft, white brilliance under the pale sky. The city below begins to wake, with smoke rising from chimneys and the distant, sound of voices drifting up on the cold air. The palace stands silent and still, a great stone vessel holding the quiet of the night and the promise of the day. The figure turns back to the room, the light illuminating the face with a gentle, even glow that softens the lines of age and work. The day has begun, and the cycle of rest and activity starts, anew with the same steady rhythm as before. The embers in the fire finally fade to gray ash, their warmth spent and their work done for the night. The silence settles once more, but it is a different silence now, one that holds the potential of the morning rather than the depth of the night. The first light of dawn rests gently on the gilded walls, a soft and quiet promise of what is to come. The great halls of the winter palace settle into a deep and heavy silence as the last candle flames begin to bow their heads. Snow falls softly against the frozen Neva, burying the cobblestones in a thick, white silence that muffles the world outside. You can hear the faint crackle of a dying fire in the hearth, a sound that seems to stretch time itself into something slow and endless. The air inside carries the scent of old beeswax, polished mahogany, and the faint, dry smell of paper that has slept in a drawer for decades. Shadows lengthen across the parquet floors, stretching from the gilded legs of chairs to the heavy velvet drapes that block out the winter moon. Every object in these rooms seems to hold its breath, waiting for the morning light that will never come quite the same way again. A single painting hangs in a dimly lit corridor, its colors deep and rich under the flickering glow of a nearby candelabra. The brushstrokes are visible upon close inspection, revealing the hand of the master who worked by the light of a single oil lamp. Dust motes dance in the beams of light that filter through the heavy curtains, moving in a slow, lazy rhythm that matches the breathing of the house. The frame is gilded and ornate, reflecting the warm light in a way that makes the metal seem to pulse with a quiet life of its own. You stand in the doorway and watch the flame dance, feeling the weight of the years pressing gently against your shoulders. The history of this place is written in the layers of paint on the walls and the wear on the floorboards where thousands of feet have passed. Every object tells a story of the people who lived and worked here, of the quiet moments that happened between the loud declarations of state. The legacy of the Empress endures in the collections she so carefully assembled, in the stones and the art that line these endless corridors. She is a background presence now, a figure moving quietly through the halls, in a memory that feels distant and soft. You can imagine her walking past the tapestries, her footsteps muffled by the thick carpets, her mind resting after a long day of ruling. The world outside holds its breath in the stillness of the deep winter night, far removed from the demands of the court and the state. Time moves slowly in this quiet sanctuary, offering a rare moment of respite for a tired and busy mind. She closes her eyes for a moment, listening to the soft breathing of the house as it settles for the night. The heavy drapes block out the moonlight, leaving only the soft glow of the candle to illuminate the space. The room feels safe and secure, a haven where the burdens of the day can be laid aside on a velvet chaise. The silence is a companion, wrapping around like a warm and soft blanket that keeps the cold at bay. She breathes in deeply, feeling the calm settle into her bones as the night deepens around her. The firelight casts a gentle rhythm on the walls, a slow and steady pulse that matches the heartbeat of the sleeping city. The night is hers to command, yet she chooses to let it pass in gentle and quiet repose. The stillness of the Winter Palace at midnight is a profound and enduring presence that fills the air with a sense of peace. A large tapestry depicting a mythological scene hangs on the far wall, its threads woven in deep blues and golds that shimmer in the dim light. A heavy velvet curtain lies folded on a nearby chaise, the fabric cool and smooth to the touch, bearing the weight of centuries of history. A single candelabra rests on a table made of dark mahogany, the wax melted into intricate patterns that tell the story of many long nights. The room smells faintly of beeswax and old paper, a scent that has lingered here since the first fire was lit. Outside the tall windows, the snow falls gently on the frozen Neva, wrapping the palace in a blanket of quiet peace. No footsteps echo on the floorboards, and no voices break the stillness of the night. The air feels still and heavy, holding the memories of all who have walked these halls before. Shadows stretch long across the floor as the firelight flickers in the hearth, casting dancing shapes against the stone walls. A porcelain vase sits on a pedestal, its surface painted with delicate flowers that seem to bloom in the dim light. The craftsmanship is exquisite, showing the skill of the artisans who worked for the court with endless patience. Everything in the room seems to breathe slowly, as if resting after a long day of activity and noise. The sense of history is palpable, yet it brings no weight to the spirit, only a gentle harmony. The fire that once destroyed much of the interior is now a memory, and the building stands restored with great care and attention to detail. The original designs are preserved in spirit, even as the physical structures have been rebuilt by new hands. New patrons emerged to fund the reconstruction, and the relationships formed during that time were often more formal than those of the earlier 18th century. Apprentices learned from masters who studied the remnants of the old palace before the fire, carrying the knowledge forward into the new era. The use of light and shadow became a central element in the evolving Russian aesthetic of the time, shaping how painters captured the soft glow of candlelight on silk and velvet. They mastered the art of depicting the vast snowy landscapes that surrounded the capital, creating a visual language of winter and light. The influence of French culture remained strong throughout the 18th century, shaping the decorative arts and the very soul of the palace. Portraits of the nobility often featured elaborate costumes and backgrounds that reflected their high social status and their place in the world. The Empress herself was known to appreciate the fine arts and encouraged the growth of local talent, supporting the establishment of museums and galleries. Her reign saw a flourishing of artistic expression that defined the era for future generations to study and admire. The court artists worked tirelessly to create works that would honor the glory of the Russian state, painting scenes of military victories and peaceful gatherings. They refined the technique of oil painting to achieve a depth and richness that was unprecedented in the region, applying layers of glaze slowly to build up the luminous quality of the final images. This method allowed for subtle transitions of tone